Hello and welcome to Special Editions. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're watching Caterpillar TV. And we do a show once a month where we have a different guest. Today, our guest is Jamie Roberts, and we're having Jamie on because she's a publicist, and she's over the last year and a half or two, she's given me a lot of great guests to interview. So I thought we'd have Jamie come on and talk about what it means to be a publicist. So that's a pretty good place to start, Jamie. When you tell people you're a publicist, what exactly is your job? What exactly do you do?
What I do is I help clients right now, since I'm a freelancer, or when I was at labels, bands on the label that were new, I help them figure out what their story is and how to tell it in a compelling way so that it's different from everybody else.
And you mentioned that you in the past you'd worked at some labels. I was curious, were they independent labels? Were they major labels? What was your experience?
I was head of publicity at Roadrunner Records for 7 years.
Pretty impressive.
I was head of rock and pop publicity at Universal for 2 years. I was head of publicity at 11/7 / Better Noise Music for 2 years. And then other times I've been freelance.
Okay, so. Now when you were working at the labels, obviously it's it's somebody else's company, but how does that work? Like, do you have any say in the bands you represent, or does the label give you like a list of these are the bands we need you to work with?
I mean, not really. Whoever the label signs is who you're working with. I mean, you can pay special attention to ones you like best.
Sure.
Like when I was at 11/7, it was Nothing More were my favorites. And Escape the Fate were also favorites of mine. And I still work with Escape the Fate.
Them, yeah, I see. And now here's a silly question, because again, this is your job and it's what you do for a living. But when you're in a situation like that where you're not freelancing and you're working at a label, and it's not 100% your control, does that really play a role in like if you like the band? I guess, I mean, of course you're working with a band you like, that's pretty fun, but could you be just as successful working with a band that maybe you're not a fan of it, because again, it's business, and your job is to kind of shine a light on these bands you're working with.
In 1997, when I first came to Roadrunner, I was interviewed by the owner of the company, and he asked me if I liked metal, and I said no, but why does it matter what I like?
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. I know who likes metal and why they like it and where to find them. And those are the important things.
Yeah, because my philosophy as far as what I do as far as interviewing bands, I'm a fan first. That's how I got into this. And I've been in this situation, like, I mean, I'll be honest, and I'll never be in this position, but if I'd ever been in the position to, let's say, interview Michael Jackson back in the day, I would have jumped at the chance, not because I'm a diehard Michael Jackson fan, but when are you going to get an opportunity like that? And even if you're not a diehard Michael Jackson fan, you might get something out of that experience, that'll come in handy in your career down the line.
Everyone has a story, and that's what I tell my clients. But the thing is, everyone thinks they know what their story is, and by and large they kind of don't know what their story is.
Yeah.
They don't know, because every day as a publicist, when I'm talking to people, the question I have to answer is, why this person? Why should I care?
Yeah.
And they have to distinguish themselves somehow. And that's what I try and help them do. But a lot of times they'll come to me thinking they know what it is. And I'll say, no, that's not interesting at all. Here's what I think it is.
Yeah. Now, as far as the artists you work with, I was curious, do you have a preference as far as getting them like on an old school radio show versus a podcast or a show like what we're doing today? I mean, or is it kind of just whatever we can do, we're going to do, guys?
Well, back in the day, I used to prefer getting some bands on television because they were bands that people had different opinions about, like, for instance, Nickelback. So I didn't want to hear any opinions. I just wanted to get the band exposure.
So
that's a TV appearance.
Yeah.
if I have a band with somebody that's really interesting, then I want to put them on a show like yours that's long form.
Yeah. And do you have a preference as far as like one thing I really enjoy about what I do is and I've been doing this a number of years. I take great pride in many of the shows I do are unscripted because we all learn as we go. And when I first started doing this, Jamie, I was real proud of myself. I sat down and I'd write out like 20 questions. Okay, I've got my questions here. And then what I found over, a course of time that when I listened back to these interviews I did, it kind of sound robotic, like you're sitting there reading it off and you don't want to do that. And so even me as an interviewer, I've learned as I go over years, but do you have a preference as far as some of your bands going on shows that are unscripted versus scripted? Like
I don't think I've gone on anything that's been scripted.
scripted as far as like, okay, guys, obviously we need you to talk about the new album or the new music video. Want to
Well,
talk about the upcoming tour, but do you ever have concerns that your band's going on a show and maybe the interviewer kind of have that kind of off the cuff?
no,
Yeah,
I prepare my bands to do proper interviews. And that's another part of what a publicist does. They have the things that are important to promote in a
sure.
list. If they have a record coming out, they of course want you to know about it. If they're going on tour, they want you to know so you can go to the cities and see them.
Yeah.
So I give them usually a list of things that they might want to touch on.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I'll more often give an interviewer a cue as to something that they can ask that will elicit a really good answer.
Yeah. In fact, Jamie, from the past of me working with you in the past, interviewing some of your artists, anytime I've interviewed, people may have seen some of the past shows we've done where you'll be off camera, but it'll say like Jamie Roberts. And you do that, I know, because a lot of times when you're working with artists for the first time, you want to see how they do on these. And you're kind of in the background just to kind of watch how they do. And then probably, I'm guessing, once the interview is over with, you call the guys and tell them, hey, great job. You guys are great. Or this is what you can improve on.
Yes.
And so I always dig that about any time I'm going to interview one of your bands that I know you're there, but you're kind of off in the background.
Yeah, that's exactly why I do it. I want to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident doing interviews. And if they're new, or sometimes like I won't ever do an Escape the Fate interview where I'm not on it
Yeah, yeah.
because there's always something they forget to tell me,
Yeah, yeah.
and like you'll get it out of them in conversation. And I'll be like, how come you didn't tell me that afterwards?
Yeah, yeah.
So I do learn quite a bit about my clients that they haven't thought to tell me when I listen.
And it's interesting. I noticed in just the roster of artists you work with that they're all quite different. A lot of them are kind of got there's a metal sound to it, but honestly, they're each band like last week I had you and Ray from Kill the Fall, I believe is the name, and come on, This Is Metal, and that's going to be airing tomorrow. But anyways, I was just so amazed because you sent me, of course, a press release on the band, so I know a little bit about what to ask for, to prepare me for. And he's influenced by punk and all this stuff, but by the and my regular co-host wasn't able to come on that day, but we went ahead and did the show anyways. And what was amazing is I'm like, this band, like I told you guys during the interview, this band has got a fresh original sound. I don't know how more people do not know about these guys, but I will tell you, I don't know if you noticed when we were doing that interview, to me, Ray's personality came alive during the interview. And I think more people see that, they're going to flock to a band like that.
Yeah, I mean, the way I choose who I work with is personality. Like if they're a person that I believe in and that I like, I can work with them and we can be really successful. So like a lot of my artists are really different.
Yeah, which is good.
But they have interesting stories, and Ray is like an amazing guy.
And he even told us a story about how he quit the music business for several years and then he gets back into it, picks up right where he left off.
Yeah, exactly. And and we had a mutual friend with from a band I used to work with. So I do get a lot of people on referrals that I work with, and I love that because the people that I like and the people that they like are all, kind of part of the family.
Are you ever surprised by any of the bands? I mean, I'm guessing that a lot of these bands, you know right away if you're going to be able to, do anything or with them, or if they're going to be successful. I mean,
Well, I wouldn't take them if I didn't think I was going to be successful with them.
another
I don't
band
want
that
to
comes
waste
to mind
someone's
that you
money.
work with is Blacklight District. I mean, from the very first time I've interviewed him, and he's worked with a number of publicists over years. I think he worked with Tag Publicity at one point, but anyways, he's with
Yeah.
you now. And one thing I picked up on the very first time I interviewed him was um, what a great songwriter this guy is. He's got the songs, which is what any band needs to be successful. And since the very first time I interviewed him, the trajectory just is up, up, up. And I mean, even what he's doing now, he just cut this great new deal for all his songs
Well,
to go on streaming
I'm
service.
actually not only his publicist, I'm also his manager.
Way to go, way to go. So what does that
Yeah.
mean? Publicist, we know. So and manager, everything else, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I manage Blacklight District. I manage all the pretty things, and I work kind of management consulting with a new band called Sun Don't Shine with guys from
Talk about
Crowbar.
that. We're gonna get them on our show. This is metal, but
Yeah.
all the pretty things. That's another one of your bands that we had come on, and I really enjoyed having them come on because again, um, before I have the band come on and interview them, especially if I've never heard the band's music, I'm gonna go on YouTube. I'm gonna check out their stuff, so I'm prepared, so I can give an opinion. When they come on the show, and all the pretty things. They're another band that I don't know that you could say they're full blown on metal. They got an alternative sound, and the thing I dig about that is you can't really pigeonhole what they are.
They can, it depending on their set list, they can play with a really heavy band or they can play with a poppy band.
Yeah, and that's going to be cool as far as working with these bands because, again, even just booking shows, like you said, you can get them on different types of bills. You can get them doing different types of shows, and that's pretty cool.
Well, they were the first band that I managed. I never wanted to be a manager, but I loved them so much, and I thought they had such potential that I decided to manage them.
When we had all the pretty things come on, there was about like a little second or two where I was kind of asking myself, okay, this is my first impression of that. Can I really justify having them come on a show called This Is Metal? But then I took a little diaper deep and looked into some of the other music, and that's exactly what I found is, the thing is, they got metal elements to what they do, but it's not straightforward. It's not, and that's what I dug. I said, yeah, I think we can just play them coming on the show like this because
like Weeping Season is
heavy. A little bit of everything,
Yeah, Weeping Season is heavy. Teenage Lines is heavy.
Yeah.
And that's the background they come from. Worth and the band used to play with He Is Legend.
Yeah.
And some other guys, and we had a drummer that's no longer in the band now that used to play with Alisana. And
Yeah, and again, when I pick the bands that we were gonna have come on, to be honest, I make that's pretty much in my ballpark as far as my I get to do that, and but I kind of feel okay. Well, I make the rules as far as that goes, and it can be whatever I want. I mean, again, in the past we've had like acts come on that were considered like a metal rap act, but I thought, why not? Oftentimes, metal, and I mean, you look at something like Anthrax and Public Enemy back in the day.
yeah.
They bring their fans together. So I've always believed if you give somebody the opportunity to tell their story, most people want to tell their story. They have a great story to tell if you allow them that opportunity. I'm always willing to hear somebody. I mean, we also had another guy that come on, This Is Metal, that wasn't necessarily a metal act, but he was a friend of Tom. So we could kind of justify because they had done a show. They were going to do a show together. Hey, why not? Let's give this guy a little shine some light on what he does.
Well, I think the definition of metal over the years has changed so much because when I first came to Roadrunner, they asked me if I liked metal, and I said no. But now, if you ask me the same question, it's definitely yes. I mean, I love all the bands I've worked with.
It's so funny you say that because, I mean, I was watching this podcast where the host was talking about, if you go back to like the 1970s, in like Circus Magazine that they were describing like REO Speedwagon as metal, or hard rock,
Yeah.
and even like you go back to the '80s. I could even say Bon Jovi, is hard rock, but like he was considered in the '80s heavy metal simply because he had long hair.
And I used to work with KK Downing,
Wow.
and he would do interviews about like the beginnings of metal, like when it wasn't even really a thing and they started doing it.
What's funny is I recently got a chance to hear the very first Judas Priest album, which is Rockarola. And what I didn't know at the time, but I'm listening to this, it sounds very different from your typical Judas Priest music. It
Yeah.
almost sounded like a progressive rock album. And I find out the reason for that is initially the stuff was written before Rob Halford was in the band. So he comes in and records somebody else's, the vocals are written for somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I mean, and there's such a variety now of metal, post-hardcore, like there's so many subgenres that there's something for everybody, I feel like.
And how much do you enjoy doing shows like this or going on, I guess, what you consider a podcast type of a show versus a standard old school radio show?
I like talking to friends. I'll, anybody who wants me to come on and help people learn about things, I'm down. I've been doing this like over 30 years. So,
I'm assuming because you're freelancing now and you said you've done that off and on. I would assume, like most people, that'd probably be your preference because you get to call the shots and
no, I loved working at record labels. I loved it. Like you had much more latitude, you had a budget, you know.
so I guess yeah, that's I guess that would be the flip side. The fact that you're freelancing now, it's all on you. You gotta come up with all the bands. You got to do all the work. You
Yeah.
have nobody to really.
And I don't hire people to work with me because I have a very specific way of doing things. And I just like to do it on my
And
own.
let's be honest, you do all the work. You should get the end rewards if you know what. And let's talk about that because a lot of people get started, in this business, especially these days, wanting to be a publicist or a manager, rock band or whatever, and they end up, volunteering or like doing it for free until they start making contacts. And um, when did you get to the point where when you start freelancing and and you reach out to the bands, how do you know what to charge them or for your services and that?
I really base it on kind of where they're at in their career and in their day jobs and what they can afford and how much I really like them.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm working with this band now that I really like. They toured with All the Pretty Things
Okay.
and they're called Half Heard Voices. And I'm not charging them as much as I've been charging because I really, really like them.
Now let me
So
ask you though, if because of the work you're doing with them, if albums start to really sell and they start doing great business, there's that chance, of course, going to raise the fee a little bit. Why not, right?
no, I mean, I don't know. If we work together that long, that'd be great. But
Yeah.
a lot of times indie bands are paying out of their own pocket and don't really have the money. So what I'm really doing in the first few months is teaching them how to do it themselves.
Okay. And Jamie, I got to tell people that that is exactly how I get a lot of the interviews that of people I interview is I've created a contact list myself. I have everybody from I've you've heard of these people like Chipster PR,
Yeah.
other publicity agencies. They will send me like a press release. Hey, these guys are doing if you want to interview them, have them come on your show, contact us. We'll set it up. And that's why oftentimes you'll hear me. I will thank Jamie. Say, hey, we want to thank Jamie Roberts for helping us get this
I
set up.
appreciate that.
We really appreciate all these people we work with behind the scenes, because honestly, maybe I could still do it, but I mean, you're one more contact that I didn't have before. In fact, and I think that we've developed a kind of relationship. Oh, sure, you want to interview this fan? Well, yeah, sure, definitely, we'll get it set up. And you trust me
I
enough.
love listening to your interviews. You and Tom are like awesome people. So,
I'll tell you a funny story. Is this metal show? I started off doing it as an old school like radio type of podcast with another guy, and
mhm.
he was no longer able to do it. And just as he was leaving, and I had to find another co-host. I thought, okay, we're going to transition to Zoom. I want to see what that's like. We want, because our goal was to always have guests. And so we made that transition with Tom. And at the time I asked Tom, you may laugh when I tell you, I had no idea at the time, but he was the president of a record company that had just taken place just a week or two before. And he hadn't told me yet. And then once we realized, so it's like you couldn't have asked for a better partnership, a better team. And I tell
He
you, I
knows a
can't really
lot.
say, but 2025, we've got even bigger and better plans.
That's great.
Yeah, but you know, and
I'm
even
always
even
ex- I'm always excited for people like you and Tom when things are going great because, I knew you when is what I'll say.
I need, and we knew you went too. Like, even I got to tell people, I dig the name of your company. And what was it? In for the win.
For the win, yeah,
For the
media.
win. Yeah, yeah. I live it. I mean, that's another thing. And I don't know if you designed the logo or how to design, but super cool logo. And I think that's a perfect name for a publicity firm. And like for the win media, I mean, you just can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it when it started, it was more a commentary on the company I used to work at.
Yeah.
Leaving there was a win for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's very versatile. I'm managing through it. I'm doing PR through it. I'm doing release consulting through it.
You ever, as far as getting stuff released, do you ever work with getting your band signed to labels or getting product put out?
I don't really believe in that now, to be honest with
Okay.
you. I think unless you're doing a radio campaign and need a lot of money, there's no reason for you to give away your rights.
Now, not get away, you're right. I guess what I'm asking is, like back in the, a lot of public stuff I work with, I know that they'll work, let's say with like Deco Records or something. And then
Mhm.
anytime they have product come out, they'll tell us, hey, do you want to interview any of these bands that are on Deco Records? We're working with them. Do you work to get any of your bands, I guess, signed to labels that you work with in
Not
the past?
really. I mean, I like working with independent artists that want to do it on their own
Yeah.
because I've had my day with I mean, I was there in the beginning with Slipknot. I was there in the beginning with Nickelback. I worked some really mainstream stuff. I worked some really obscure stuff like Deicide and Obituary and stuff like that. And I've worked at labels and I see how they can potentially neglect
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah.
And I think that unless you have something that a label really, really wants, there's
Yeah.
no reason to sign.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. In fact, let's be honest. There's really not as much need these days to even be signed to a label. A lot of bands just put stuff out independently, and oftentimes it works for them. It's more of a financial gain as opposed to having the record company get the bulk of the money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you wind up owing money to a record label if you sign.
Yeah.
So,
And that's pretty amazing to hear that you worked with Slipknot. I got to ask you, the first time you meet those guys, or even seeing a photo of them, that had been quite an impression on you.
well, I'll tell you something funny, a little funny story from the first time I met them. First time I met them was Ozfest West Palm Beach.
Okay.
And I went with them and we were walking around, a few of us, and there was a henna tattoo place.
Oh, okay.
So I went to the henna tattoo place and I got a tribal S right here.
Okay.
And then I went back on the bus and showed them all. And I think it was Sid that said, "You should get a real one." And I looked at him and I said, "When your album goes platinum." This
Oh,
is when we first signed them. As
yeah.
soon as their record went platinum, I was avoiding them like the plague,
I bet.
and they
Wow.
didn't remember.
Yeah, yeah. They had some other things on their mind. And- yeah. And have you ever had, Jamie, in your years of doing this, trouble with people taking you serious for a simple fact you're a woman?
Yes, but those people were avoidable.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm the queen of workarounds. If someone's getting in my way, I'll find a way to get around them.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell that. So it seems like you pretty much enjoy what you do, but what would you say is the hardest part, or maybe the most time consuming about what you do?
The hardest part is telling bands things they don't want to hear.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you need to work on this more, or you need to do more social media. And because you're not doing social media, that's why you're not growing.
yeah. And like I said, I know that like anytime I've had any of your bands come on, you're on in the background. But have you ever worked with a band, let's say that wasn't great at doing interviews, or they weren't as you know, they didn't really like maybe being told what to say? I mean, how do you deal with that as a publicist?
Well, my best example of that are the guys I love now, Escape the Fate. Um, Back when I first started working with them at the label, when we didn't really know each other well, they would just go off the rails on interviews. And I would be like, guys, why am I scheduling an interview if all you're going to do during it is talk crap on the label?
Yeah, yeah,
And they were like, well, we didn't think, and it's all like communication.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think a big part of that stuff was understanding where they were coming from.
yeah. I mean,
And now I love them, and they're like the best interviews ever.
sometimes you just have to communicate stuff like that with the people. That's kind of Tom and me. That's our golden rule: never talk bad about anybody. I mean, we've had a couple experiences with people coming on, and we thought, hey, it was a great show and that, and then later they complain about whatever. But we always try to keep it positive, and like, well, you're welcome back anytime. Sorry it didn't work out.
You guys are great. You're very welcoming to your guests, and it's fantastic.
In fact, Tom even told me, he had a conversation with somebody that he worked with, and he was just telling them, that's got to be the golden rule. We don't talk bad about anybody. That's if you
It
want,
always comes back to bite you in the ass if you do.
yeah, even if you think nobody knows about it, somebody's listening, we'll repeat it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jamie, as always, this was a lot of fun, and I think people enjoy. Anybody wants to know what a publicist is? Well, you did a great job of talking about that. So I'm
Thank
going to
you.
try to get this up by Friday this week. So I will let you know once I confirm that, and feel
Awesome.
free to share it, and we'll have you back, I'm sure, down the line.
Anytime. For
And
you
as far
guys,
as,
anytime.
I'll be getting back to you about the band we are talking about having come on. This is metal, the Type of Negative
Yep.
guys. Yeah, the sun
Great.
don't shine, right? That's it, right? The sun don't
Sun
shine.
don't shine. Yep.
I love that. We'll talk about that down the line. Take care, my friend.
Bye.